Michaela, for joining us for the Meet the Speaker series. We're very excited to host you on our campus in Hall in a year's time, exactly today.
Thanks for having me, Felipe. I'm very excited about the EduFest.
So would you mind telling us your name, your job title, and what does that job title entail?
My name is Michaela Horvathova, and my job title is I'm a co-founder and chief education officer at Beyond Education. And in this role, I wear many hats. But at the heart of it, I really serve as the voice behind our mission to reimagine how we nurture and assess human potential. And so, as the face of the company, I spend a good deal of time raising awareness, speaking at global conferences, joining podcasts, and actually just connecting with change makers across the education ecosystem. And internally, I lead our R&D efforts, really shaping the intellectual backbone of our platform and also ensuring that our tools are grounded in the cutting edge research and at the same time that they are meeting the real needs of learners and schools. And also, I manage and grow our incredible team. Without them, nothing would be really possible. So I recruit, select, and nurture the talent that shares our values and ambition. And of course, I sell. I do it in terms of the pitching to schools and potential clients and partners, and also convincing investors to believe in our long-term vision and fundraising to fuel our next stage of growth. And so, in essence, I helped translate our bold purpose into practical action every day.
So as a co-founder, how did you find yourself thinking, this is what I'm going to do next?
I think it comes from a deep sense of purpose, which is to unlock every learner's full potential, and especially the parts that are oftentimes overlooked in the traditional education systems. And it was something that I personally experienced when I was growing in Slovakia. I attended the traditional education system. And I really felt like I didn't fit into the box. I was too curious. I was asking too many questions, and it wasn't really, I felt, rewarded in the education system. And what really was my way forward was professional tennis, which helped me gain a tennis scholarship in the US. And then later on, I actually made it to Harvard. And I think it was the competencies that I developed through professional tennis, like resilience, growth mindset, work ethic, confidence, self-esteem, that really helped me do anything else in my life and ultimately get into Harvard, which I think it's a testament to that actually the education system should go beyond the grades. Um, and so then afterwards, after Harvard, I spent many years in policy, in education policy. I really believe that the biggest impact I can have is by shaping international education policy. I worked at the OECD for several years, and then I was working as an advisor to Prime Minister in Slovakia, and I was also working with other ministers of education around the world in Brazil, South Africa, Netherlands, really shaping the competency-based education. But after several years, I realized that even if you have a perfect policy and reform and it's very well written document, it still doesn't mean, and actually, unfortunately, oftentimes it's not the case, that it's translated into the ground and the schools on day-to-day basis. And so this is how I decided to build a bridge myself and created Beyond Education to try to impact change more bottom up by actually developing tools that help the schools with this transformation.
And I think incredibly profound and so important to challenge some of the pre-existing structure of education and a little bit perhaps some of the customs, routines, and habits that we might fall into, right? And continue doing things the way we've always done it because that's the way we've always done it. And so those questions I think are so important to be asked. Is that what we can expect to hear from you at EduFest?
Basically, what is the future of education in the age of AI and the power of competencies in this age? And I think that the overall structure would be how in this current age of artificial intelligence, we need more than ever focus on something else than just cognitive tasks because machines can do that better and faster, right? and the gap between what is happening in the world and how technology is accelerating and how education system is responding or not is increasing. It's really the scissors that are widening, and the gap is huge. And so on one side, it's really about raising awareness and a bit of sense of urgency, why we really need to act, and why a lot of educational systems around the world are in a crisis because they're just so outdated and so disconnected from the reality and the world. And then the way to respond to that is to focus more on holistic development, right? And instead of just focusing on students to memorize the outdated knowledge and information, to actually develop competencies that make them human and that can actually differentiate them from the machines, right? Like resilience, ethics, leadership. I'm sure that we all can agree that now more than ever, we would need some more of ethical leadership in the world, right? And so I think that this should be at the core of education. Not saying that knowledge is no more important, but having both equally balanced. And then talking about basically how can we do it by measuring it, right? Because we measure what we treasure. And so if we want to shape the education system and widen the scope of education, we need to move away from just examination and grades and tests to focus on more holistic evaluation of the students, right? And so basically it's shaping the incentive systems. And lastly, I will talk about the tools that we developed at Beyond Education and how we help schools around the world. We are now in more than 13 countries across more than 2,000 schools and impacting more than 190,000 students. And how we are helping schools to basically achieve this transformation that is needed.
Would you say that as far as education is concerned, there's maybe a lack of celebration of that cultural diversity within the education systems themselves? And rather than perhaps expanding on what each culture can bring to their own students to develop and to learn, maybe with a little bit homogenized education, do you think that that would be a fair assessment?
Yeah, I think that there is a lot of standardization across the world, right? And that a lot of countries are losing their cultural heritage. And that's why there's also a lot of policies talking about how can we integrate indigenous knowledge in the countries like South Africa, New Zealand, Austria, Canada, right? So I see that there is work being done, but there has definitely been a standardization that is sort of cutting from this richness in many countries and education systems.
Do you think technological advancements, AI in particular, and the development of these competencies might allow us to reconnect with some of that indigenous knowledge and actually find a way for both of them to have equal footing and be seen just as important one as the other?
I think it depends on us, on how we design it and what is the intention. So I think that the technology has this power, right? It has the power to equalize the playing ground if used well, right? And at the same time, we are at the risk that the most developed countries know how to use it the best and to their best advantage, and the more developing countries are still struggling and not knowing how to use it. So I think it really depends on the kind of policies that we defined internationally to make sure that we can benefit from the technology for this goal.
Do you disconnect? What do you do? Do you listen to music? Do you read books? Do you watch movies? Do you have a hobby or a passion, some maybe creative output that allows you to do and think of something else and then return to the question at hand? Or are you always pretty much thinking about education and competencies and how can we be able to better prepare our children for the world that they are inheriting?
I definitely spend a lot of time thinking about it and doing it because it's a huge passion of mine, but I do disconnect. I need to disconnect to keep balance. And so I think the best way for me is my little daughter that instantly bring me back to present moment and just grounds me, and that's just, I feel like nowadays the best time to really disconnect. And then, of course, being in the nature, spending time with friends. And then, yeah, I love to read books, listen to music.
What's a book that comes to mind that really maybe challenged your perspective on something or that made you kind of stop and think?
Mm. So I love David Brooks. I don't know if you know him. He's a Canadian journalist, writer, columnist in New York Times. I think I read almost all of his books and I love them. I think they're excellent. And the one that really stood out for me was called Second Mountain. It talks about basically that we in life have two mountains to climb. The first one is sort of focused on success and ourselves and sort of centered around ourselves. And then many times at some point when we reach it, we feel dissatisfied as something is missing, right? And that the second mountain is really more about deeper purpose, serving community, serving something larger than yourself, and really committing to family, to cause, to vocation, to community. And that's when you find the most meaning in life and live more life. And I think it very much resonates with me. So I really love that book.
Is there anything else that you would like to share with EduFest attendees?
Something that I'm currently, thinking about, and I think many people do currently, given the current context of the geopolitics. I think that we really live in a complex, difficult times, which sometimes it's referred to as a VUCA world, so volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous, or polycrisis. So it's really the combination of many crises that can together have a really a huge negative impact. And I think that we all have a choice to either feel hope or fear. And I think it's also normal that we probably feel both. But I think and I believe that the world really needs more hope, the intentional and active hope, the kind that really motivates us to act and to build and care, because I believe we all have a role to play, whether as an educator, a parent, a student, we all do. And so I truly believe that together we can co-create education system in the world that truly prepares us for what's coming.